Hello, 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 everybody. We are back. This is Walk It Out Inspirations Talk True Talk Show. I am super excited to be back with you guys this evening. I know this is a new day, right? Thursday night. Surprise! We on for an extra day. Yes, that is right. We are on for an extra day. I'm super excited. We are continuing to talk about domestic violence this month. And we have a special guest. We've already talked about trauma. Y'all done heard the testimony from Minister Barbara. You done heard Apostle Keisha break down trauma and the effects from domestic violence and how it ties into trauma. And then guess what, guys, today? Today we have none other than our lovely Miss Tamisa Hunter. She is going to come because you want to know why? Because domestic violence has a voice. That's right, y'all. Domestic violence has a voice. So I am super excited that she has come on to share her testimony and to encourage others from her experience and how God has brought her through her situation. So I'm not going to wait any further. I'm going to go ahead and bring her on because I see that she is here. So here it is. Hello, Tamisa. How are you?
I am good. How are you?
I am wonderful. Thank you so much for joining me on this subject.
Thank you for having me. Thank you for being here. It's such an honor to be
Listen,
on here.
listen. You ready to speak truth?
That's all I know how to do is go speak my truth. Speak my truth.
Amen. Amen. It's time to set the people free. We got to speak the truth now. So this month we doing domestic violence. So
Yeah.
I'm just let's talk about it. Let's talk about it. What is your experience with domestic violence?
Ooh, my experience. To God be the glory that I made it out. But I was about 5.5 years, almost 6 years in a very abusive relationship.
Mhm.
The first year or so, it was bliss. It was everything that I wanted. He showed the attention, the affection. He did all the right things that made me feel like, oh, okay, this is what love really is. Because before I went into the relationship, I didn't know what love was because I was searching for love in all the wrong places,
Mm.
which is how I ended up in the relationship because I thought that was what love was about, what he was giving me, but really that wasn't love. But when the first year, like I said, it was bliss, everything was fine. And then it
Mhm.
got to the point to where he just got very possessive and he did not want me to go anywhere, talk to anyone. Um, and I didn't even think anything of it because he was actually a drug dealer.
Wow.
And I was always at home anyway. He was always out, on the streets and everything. But the longer he stayed in it, he got very protective and jealous. So he didn't want me to go anywhere. I couldn't even talk to my family. And when I did talk to my family, he threatened to kill them and things like that. And then
Wow.
because I was afraid of that. I alienated myself from them all because of him. Because I remember one time where he he hit me for the first time, and I was like, I'm not gonna stay here and deal with this. So I left and I went to my grandparents' house, my big daddy and my big mama, my heart. And when I got there, he came and he was just so bold, like, I don't care if you is in here with these elderly folks, I'm gonna come in here and get you. So he bust through the door, past my big daddy, cussed him out, came to the back, and we just got into a big fight. And because he was like, I'm gonna kill you, I'm gonna kill them, you better come with me. He had his gun. I left with him. And my grandfather was like, Pee Wee, well, he called me Pee Wee. He was like, Pee Wee, don't go. But I was trying to watch out for them because at this point I didn't know what he was gonna do because I seen a rage in his eyes that I never seen before. And so then that's when I really was like, okay, what's going on? How did I get into this? So I left with him only because I thought that he was going to do something to my grandparents. And
Mhm.
from that day on, I couldn't even go to the mailbox. If I went to the mailbox and someone from the streets saw me, they would go on the block to tell him that they saw me outside and what I had on. And he would come home. And when he came home, we would get into a fight, get into an argument, which led to us just turn up the place. And it got to a point where everywhere we lived, we got into a fight. We got kicked out because we was always fighting over something. And then because he would threaten me and my family, I just stayed at that point because I was afraid. And then even though he would say he loved me and things, and because he was in the drug game, when he would bring things home, I thought that by him showering with gifts, that was love. I thought that, when we made up, that was love. And that wasn't love. Then after we would get into a
Mhm.
fight, we would have relations, and then he would be like, you know how much I love you, and I'm just don't want nobody you to get hurt. And he would try to use the streets as an excuse as the reason why he was the way that he was. And then in my mind and being naive and everything, I took it as, okay, yeah, he's just protecting me. Like I finally got a protector. Because when I was growing up, my father, he denied me most of my life. He said I wasn't his. So I never really had a father figure in my life. I had that male figure in my life to know or understand what love was. So when he did things like that by being that protector, I thought again that that was love. So I embraced that protection, that so-called protection that he had, to
Mhm.
as okay, this is what I was leading. Because when I would look at my friends, I see that their fathers will be loving them and they'll go to the school plays and things like that. Well, I didn't have that. My mom was a single mom and she raised me. And then I was like, how can I stay? But then I didn't want anything to happen to my big daddy and my big mama because they were
Mhm.
my heart. So as the years went on, it got worse to the point to where we had two hospitals in my hometown where I'm from, and both hospitals ER rooms knew me because every time I would come in, I would be busted up some type of way, had to get stitches or had to get staples or whatever the case may be. And it got to the point where I wasn't even ashamed anymore because it was like, when I came through that door, it was like she's back type scenario,
Mhm.
And so I think more it was I was needing crying for help, but it was like no one wanted to help me because even the people from the streets knew that all we did was fight. They didn't even try to help because they knew all T and Reed do is just fight. So that's just them. Don't even worry about it. And that wasn't the case. And then I couldn't go home because by this time, me and my mom, we was at heads because I was with him, and I felt like she didn't understand me. And then I was trying to protect my grandparents, so it was like I didn't have anywhere to turn to. And then because he was a dope dealer, although we done got busted at the house, the police knew my address, they knew my car, and every time we would stop, they would let me go. They say you can go, but they'll take him. But it was like I couldn't even go to them for protection because it was like what? And it was just one officer. I'm never gonna forget his name. I'm not gonna mention his name, but it was like you see the abuse, the bruises on me. You see the scars, and you don't care. All you care is about, I guess, getting uh what up under your belt that you caught him and put him in jail or whatever. So it was like I had nowhere to go. So I felt like I had to stay. So I felt like every lick that he gave me was love because after that we would make up, or he would bring something home. And every time he would come home at night, he always brought me something to eat. And this, I mean, it was just little bitty small stuff like that. And then it got worse when he would start hitting me with items, shoes, bricks, stitching cords, tree limbs. And I'm keloid prone, so when he hit me one time beside my face, it cut me on this side. You can't see it now, but like this keloid, he cut me and I got a keloid and I had a scar on my face. And I used to wear my hair over on my right side so no one would see it, but it scarred up really bad. And I don't even know why I didn't leave him then. because they had to go in and actually surgically go in and remove some of the wood that was stuck in my skin.
Mm.
And then even after that, he hit me upside the head with a 2x4 in the back of my head. And the people at the hospitals were like, I don't even know how you're still living, how you still here, because the blow at your head, you should have had trauma to the brain or something. So I ended up getting
Jesus.
32 stitches in the back of my head. And I still have the scar there. And then from the point of him stabbing me stabbing him, it was just a very crazy time in my life. And I couldn't tell you why I stayed, because a lot of people ask, why do you stay? And I tell them all the time, I really can't tell you that answer, because until you was in the gutter with me, you wouldn't understand why I stayed. Because my gutter at that time defined who I was, and I allowed him to define who I was. And everything that I was trying to develop into a woman, he took from me. And I learned how to fight. That's all I knew, because I've been fighting all my life, which is why I know one of the reasons why I stayed in relationships so long, because I was bullied as I was growing up, from elementary all the way up to high school, to the point where even in middle school I had a fight. I ended up being paralyzed for about 2 to 3 weeks because of fighting. When I was in high school, because the girls bullied me and haunted me and taunted me so much, I could have had a track scholarship, but I opted to get out of school early my junior and senior year, just so I wouldn't have to be there to fight. So to me, fighting and protecting and being in that survival mode is something that I did my whole life. So when I was in the relationship with him, I've looked at it as I was just surviving. As I was looking, I was just still fighting, because I had to fight growing up, and no one really understood that. I didn't understand why I was being bullied when I was growing up. I didn't understand why those things happened to me, but I settled with him, which allowed me to continue to allow the abuse that he gave me, for me to accept it during that time. So over the years of all the fighting, all the getting kicked out of every place we lived at, us staying in every single hotel, motel, Holiday Inn in my hometown, we didn't have I ended up being homeless, sleeping in the
Wow.
car, sleeping in dope houses and things like that, just because he didn't want me to leave him or not be by his side, or for him having the control over me where I couldn't go anywhere. As long as he knew where I was, he was fine. But if I left without him knowing, if I talked to such and such without his permission, it was like crazy. And so I remember a time when I was working as a medical assistant at a nursing home, and he came to get me, and I was late coming out of work, because he would drop me off and pick me up. He was very controlling. And he came in the nursing home, went up and down each aisle until he found me. And I was in a room with a patient finishing up. He came in and hit me while I had the patient in my hand. And I'm like, and at this time, I'm worried about my patient, I'm worried about my job, and then I was worried about people seeing him, what he was doing to me. So I hurried up and got everything together, and I left with him, and I went to the trunk of the car, because I was like, I'm not going to allow him to hit me anymore. And I felt embarrassed because of what he did. And when I went to the trunk of the car, I remember him pulling the trunk down on my head, and that's how I got this scar on my forehead, and it cut me. And I was trying to get the sledge. What was that thing in the back of the car? The thing for the jack.
For the jack, yeah.
To hit him, because I'm like, I'm at work. I'm tired. I'm tired of getting hit. I'm tired of going through this. I'm tired of being embarrassed, because even at my place of employment, no one cared. No one tried to help me. No one called the police. And again, I felt abandoned, rejected, uh, not cared, not loved. And I settled again, because here I am. He's the only one that cared, even though it was in a very abusive relationship. And so when I think about that and everything that I went through, I was trying to find out what was the root cause of it. And I figured out what the root cause of it when I got older. And then I told him he was a coward because he would want to beat up on me, but if someone at the block charged him up, he wouldn't do anything. And when I realized that, I was like, see, you needed someone to try to justify, validate who you thought you were because you're not the person who you think you are. And which allowed me to start saying, okay, God, I need you to help me. I need you to help me and give me the strength to walk away. And although I was trying to control the situation, because I would give it to God, but I take it back. I give it to God and I take it back because I was in that survivor mode and I felt like I was alone, that nobody was there. Because there was a time when I was like, okay, I'm tired of this. I'm not going to sit here and deal with him. I am going to go out. And by this time, I didn't have no friends. I didn't have no friends anyway because I was bullied. But I said, I'm going to go out. And it was this club back home. Baby, when I got to the club and them people saw me, they would run and say, Reed, your girl outside, your girl outside. And I had went to my grandfather's house and got his gun. And I had the gun in my pocket. So when he came out, he come rushing out. And I was like, he came up to me and I pulled up the gun. And I was like, you will not hit me tonight. You will not hit me again. And then we scuffled. And next thing I know, I tell people all the time, I should have either been dead, up under the jail, doing fed time in some crazy home or something because of the things that I went through. So we sit there and we scuffle with the gun. Now, Miss Alicia, what if the gun would have went off and shot me, shot him, shot an innocent bystander? What would have happened? Then here we would have lost an innocent life over him trying to prove the fact that he's all big and bad, and that's not the case. So I was like, I'm done. I can't continue to live my life like this. I was missing my mom. I was missing my grandparents. I was alone. I'm like, I'm not going to do it anymore. So I remember when I was trying to leave, I had locked him out the house. And then someone had called the police because he was outside just acting a plum fool. And so I let him in. And so when the police got there, he was hiding behind the dresser. And they asked me, was he there? And I lied. And I was like, no, because I knew if I would have said, yeah, because I was trying to nod them where he was, but it was like they weren't paying attention to me because they didn't care. And by that time, we had already had a fight and I was bleeding on my hand. And they ignored like the tore clothes and everything. And I'm thinking to myself, you see me over here hurting, you see me over here, with torn clothes and stuff, and all you worried about is him, because he was this drug dealer, but I'm the victim. He's not. So they ended up searching the house and they found him behind the dresser. So they ended up taking us both to jail because they said I was harboring a fugitive, but they let me go. And so they ended up putting him in jail, and I didn't have any money or anything. So I ended up having to sell some of the cocaine that we had just for me to get some money. And so when he got out, I went bailed him out. He got out. And then he got mad at me because I didn't get enough money from the sale of the drugs. So got into another fight. So by this time, he ended up going to jail that night, and he ended up staying in jail for I don't know, probably about 60 days. Well, during this time frame, I was like crying out to God. I was like, "Why me? Why am I still here? What is it about me that? Whew, what is it about me that I have to be the one that no one loved? I felt like no one loved me. Why was I the one that had to go to always fighting? I always having to explain myself. When I was growing up, I told people that my mom was artificial inseminated because my dad wasn't in my life. And I just cried out to God. And I was like, God, I can't do this no more. You say, I grew up in church, was at church every Sunday, Wednesday Bible study,
That's it.
Saturday, I was at the rehearsal line that morning, and then
Yes.
choir practice that evening, I'm back at church. So it's like I knew church, but and I knew and I heard the scriptures and everything, and I always knew I had something on my life or some type of calling or something, but I didn't understand it because I was a child, and I just sat there on the floor and I just cried out for like 2 or 3 days. I didn't eat. I didn't even drink. And so he got out, and I guess during that time frame of me just crying out to God, he came home. He was mad, of course, because I didn't have anything in there what he wanted. We got into a fight, but this time I fought back. I fought back like I was a dude. I don't know where I got this strength from, but I know the Holy Spirit gave it to me because I was fighting him like with every power and might in my body. We tore up that whole duplex from the walls, had holes, every window, every mirror, everything was tore up. Couches cut, refrigerators, our refrigerator was knocked over. It was crazy. And we fought for like almost an hour. But it felt like it was only a few minutes. But I remember looking at the clock, and it was 6:09 p.m. But it felt like it just like this. But when I ended up leaving, I ended up getting a baseball bat, and I busted out the windows of the car and tried to mess up the car where he couldn't mess with me. And when I did that, I said, "You would never lay another hand on me another day of my life." And at this time, I turned around and I started walking down the street because I wasn't too far from my mom's house. So I'm walking down the street, clothes tore off, blood coming from every which way possible. Um, my breast was hanging out. I didn't barely had any clothes on. I was barefooted, and I'm walking down the street. Cars just passing. No one stopped. No one said, "Do you need help? Where are you going? Do you I need to call the police?" But you know what? It didn't even bother me no more because I was free. I felt free. I felt that God covered me and kept me because the strength that I had to fight him back, it was like he was laying there like he didn't know what to do, and he was shocked that I actually did that. And I walked to my mom's house, and when I walked there, I told all my mom did was embrace me. And that was the beginning of me transforming my life to let it go and to let God heal me from the inside out. And that's when my transformation started happening in that regard to give me strength to leave that relationship. So that's how my domestic violence, that's not even all of it, but I know we don't have time. We'll be on here all night. But that's just a little highlight of what I went through. But I had to ask God to just give me strength and to help me because I refused to go through the hospital again. And I refused for those women to look at me like I was just pitiful, like, baby. Because that one lady was like, if you don't stop, you're going to have black marks around your eyes and you'll never be able to get them because of all the black eyes that I had, all the bruises that I always had on my face, the swollen eyes, the cuts, every scar that I have on my body came from that relationship. And because I'm keloid prone, I got scars all over that came from that relationship. And I'm surprised. I'm not surprised because I know God has a calling on my life. But even when He stabbed me, it's like I didn't feel it because by that time, I was numb. Even when I got hit upside the head, because he would always try to go for the head, and I don't know why. Maybe that's why I come in so big. I don't know. But but I know that he was a coward because if a man came up to him, he wouldn't do anything. So when I left, I for 8 months I was by myself, talking to God, surrendering my life, rebuilding relationships, getting myself together. And I told myself that I will forever tell my story. But then I was ashamed to tell my story because I figured like no one would understand because they always ask, why do you stay? Or why were you in it? Girl, you should have did this. Girl, you should have did that. You
Mhm.
don't know what you should have did unless you was in the middle of it. You have
Mhm.
to know someone's story to know why they're in, because everyone has a story, a testimony, skeletons in their closet, and things that they did that they wish they hadn't done. But honestly, I don't even regret that time in my life because it shaped me and formed me for who I am today. And it gave me my character. And these tears are not of hurt, they're of freedom. Because I allowed all the scars that I received to be healed and not just continue to put a band aid on it and not want to share my
Wow.
story. I'm very transparent because every time I tell my story, I continue to get healed. And although that was a long time ago, it's still things inside of me that hurts. But I do know I have a God that I can go to, that I can say, God, take this pain from me. Then He always put people in my life to encourage me, to help me, and to empower me. And I thank God for that. I thank God for what I went through. I do. It was it ugly? Yes. Would I go back and do it? Probably yes, and I would probably do it a different way. But I tell you, abuse can come in all forms, mentally, physically. It can even come verbally. I got all of that. And with that on top of my the little girl that was inside of me, you
That's
know,
it.
that part there. And that when you identify that, then you can identify why things happen and why you stay in that relationship. So
Mhm.
I always tell women, don't you can't judge because the only person that can judge is God.
Mhm.
And by me being in that situation, it taught me a lot. It taught me that he didn't know who he was and he didn't love himself. He didn't know how to love. Because if you consider hitting someone as love, you wasn't loved. So we had to look at what did he go through his childhood. And when I
Mhm.
thought about it, his mom didn't raise him. His grandmother did. And she did the best that she could, which is how he ended up on the streets and on the blocks. Well, that's where you have to go into the find the root cause of why things happen. So not only did I have this little girl that had all this stuff built up and rejection and all of this, he too had the same thing. But the only difference is he just didn't know how to channel it without being abusive, you know?
Yeah. Wow. Such a powerful story. Such a powerful story and testimony. And there's a few things that you mentioned. First and foremost, the little girl. The little girl.
The little girl.
When that little girl in you is suffering, first and even the more when you don't really so much know how to love yourself. And because you don't feel loved, it pushes you to look for love in all the wrong places.
Mm-hmm.
And it messes with your definition of what love really looked like. It almost goes back to the song of I think it's Tina Turner that sings it. What's love got to do with it?
Mm-hmm.
Because it leaves you questioning what is love? What
Mm-hmm.
is it? Can we really define it outside of knowing that it's an emotion? What is love? And it's so relatable. Everybody uses that word so freely.
So
I love you. I love you,
mm-hmm.
but don't mean it. They
Don't
say
mean
it, but don't mean it. So while you were going through the journey, you realize me getting beat on, me being somebody punching bag, me being somebody's dumpster where they can try to prove a point. That's not love.
Mhm.
This is not love. I know the saying say love hurts,
Mhm.
but does love really hurt? Because even when God loves us, it doesn't come with no pain. It doesn't come with no burden. It's a genuine feeling
Mhm.
that He continues to love despite our imperfections.
Mhm.
Wow. Wow.
And you know, another thing that I thought about as you were speaking, you know, I am married. I've been with my husband for 27 years. And I
Wow.
tell people all the time that he's my grace because when I left that relationship in the 8 months that I was just working on me and, you know, just staying focused, my husband came along. I wasn't looking for him, I wasn't looking for love. And I'm gonna tell you a funny story because I was at a payphone. That's when they had payphones back then. And I was at a payphone and I was on the phone with someone, and another guy came through the stoplight, and I was actually trying to get his attention, but my husband seen me. So when my husband came, I didn't want to be rude. So I gave him my number. And then on that was on November the 9th. I'm sorry, November the 8th. And so he came over that night. We talked all night. On November the 9th, he came back. We talked all night. On November the 10th, he came with all his clothes packed in the trunk. And I'm like, where are you going? He was like, I'm going to be with you. And we've been together ever since. But the first 2 or 3 years we were together, I was abusive to him because that's all I knew. And every time I would be abusive to him, whether if it was physically or verbally, all he did was love me back. He
Mm,
said, don't worry about your past. Don't worry about what such and such didn't do. I love you. And I couldn't receive his love because I was thinking in my mind that I needed this thug love or the love from the street because, like you said, we was looking for love in all the wrong places. And so for that reason, that's how I ended up even being abusive to him. But my husband stayed in that because he stayed and still loved me despite of me not knowing how to love me first in order for me to love
mm,
him. But he loved me enough for the both of us. And that was the love that God gave him to love through him to for it to pass to me.
mm,
So the first few years I was not ready to be a wife. I was I still didn't know who I was. I was still thinking of that relationship. So I would take it out on him. Or if I felt like he wasn't doing something he needed to do. But he still was there and he still loved me. So after a couple of years of him constantly doing those positive affirmations and encouraging me, I finally accepted it. And God was like, this is love. And I accepted my husband's love from there. And that's why I tell people he's my grace because he could have left me when I stabbed him in the arm. He could have left me when I sit there and hit him because all I thought about was what I went through from that little
mhm,
girl that was still lost inside of me to even though I had grown up and I was still lost, still hurting and taking all of that and putting it on him. And then after I was like, okay, God, we back here again, but why is it me doing it? Because that's all I knew. But he gave me a man that loved me enough despite of to the point to where now I love that man dirty water, bath water. And I thank God for him because he didn't give up on me. And
mhm,
that's when I tell women all the time, when you don't look for love, I said all that to say this. When you don't look for love and allow love to come to you,
mhm.
that's the love that God has for you.
Yes,
That's when you know that this is the right person for you. And you
that's
can
it.
embrace that love every which way it comes.
That's that's so true, and that is so good right there. That is so good because um with my husband in the beginning, he couldn't touch me. And if he touched me, I was fighting.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I hit him a few times and my verbal words,
Mm-hmm.
and I didn't realize what I was doing. And all he was trying to do was just love me. But it just confirms what God says in his word that love covers the multitude of sin.
Yes.
When you truly, genuinely love somebody, despite their imperfections, just
Mm-hmm.
loving them for them, it'll change a person.
It will.
Because my husband did the same for me. He kept loving me. He still was there. He said, I still ain't going nowhere. I'm like, dude, you don't get it? Like,
I told mine.
what you want with me? Listen,
Right.
you trying to love on me, but I ain't trying to love on you.
Right.
I'm done with love. I ain't thinking about marriage. So I'm sorry. You hit a roadblock when you came my way
Mm-hmm.
because it's not about to happen. But God removed the scales, removed. He said, remember that you asked me for something.
Yep. And
Did you
that's
not?
what happened. Mm-hmm.
Didn't you ask me? He said, go back to what you asked me.
Right.
And when I did, I said, oh my God, I've been beating on a man
You and me both.
that God had for me. This whole time I've been knocking
Oh
him with
my
my
gosh.
words and being rude and unnice. And I
Every
said, but to me, I didn't see that as abuse. And it was funny because my husband and I, we did our talk show yesterday and we was talking about it.
mm-hmm.
We did a recording yesterday and we was talking about it. And he mentioned, he said, well, I never went through domestic violence. Well, actually, until you started hitting me. And I was like, y'all, I have a disclaimer. I'm not a fighter, I'm a lover.
Right, 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 right. You know,
But it
that's
was that
funny.
moment, that little girl in you that suffers, that's still going through, that's still one of the things that the Lord shared. He said, allow the little girl in you to heal and allow the little girl in you to rise up and grow up. And
Mm-hmm.
once the little girl in you rises, everything else about you, the woman, your womanhood,
Mm-hmm.
and
That
who
was
you
true.
are
Mm-hmm.
will begin to rise up.
Mm-hmm.
But that little girl was still in a cave, still suffering and still mourning and still crying. Although the adult, the woman, was like, hey girl, all is well. I'm blessed and
Yeah,
highly favored. Hey,
yeah, yeah,
you
yeah.
want to hang out? Let's go hang out.
Right.
But then in the dark, that same woman had suicidal thoughts. That same woman
Mm-hmm.
felt worthless, didn't feel of any worth, didn't feel of any value. You mentioned something. You said when you was in this relationship, you didn't know who you were. It's something when you get into a relationship and it causes you and strips you from your own identity. You lose yourself
Mm-hmm.
and try to be someone and somebody to uphold and appease. So I want to talk about that a little bit. What would you say to that person, to the old you? How would you encourage that person? What would you say to them that's in that situation?
That first off, I would say that I God formed me, so I'm supposed to be here. I was in my mom's womb when I was just a little acorn, and He thought about an acorn, and He thought about me, and everything about me He formed me. And if He thought of me being that small to make me be developed into this person that I am? How can I allow someone to strip that from me? Because he stripped everything about me away from me. The womanhood, the person I was supposed to be going up into, but I allowed him to do that because I didn't know. So if I had to tell someone, I would tell them, you have to know who you are. You have to understand that God formed you in your mother's womb and uniquely formed you, and you are wonderfully made. And for that reason, no one can ever come in and take away your power of the creation that God has created you. And I would encourage them to love themselves just as God loved them. But you have to lose self care and love yourself first.
Mm-hmm.
And when you love yourself first, and it's something about that light when you are confident in yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Because I tell people now, your life is your runway and
Oh,
you
that's
have this
good.
lane. So when you know that you're walking this runway and this is your life, don't let anyone detour you and take you to the left or the right because he formed you for you. He gave everything inside of you, your gifts, your talents, is for you to be able to go forth for his purpose,
Mm-hmm.
not for Tom, Dick, or Harry, not for this man who don't know how to love himself or know how to love you, or not just a man, just anybody, period. Don't let anyone take away your identity because it's only one you, and your
Mm.
DNA is for you. You came in
Mm-hmm.
this world by yourself and you're going to leave by yourself. So you can't take them with you. So I tell them to encourage them, love yourself, walk your own runway and own it. Walk in your truth and don't worry about what nobody else is saying, what they're thinking, what they're not thinking, or how they're going to judge you. Because, baby, there is only one you, and you have to love you. And while you edit, you do your two snaps in the finger, you do your little twirl, and you keep it going.
Yes. That is so good. That's good. That, wow. Your life is your runway. Y'all that's listening, I want y'all to hashtag that. I want y'all to go ahead and hashtag that. Your life is your runway.
Mm-hmm,
Listen, if y'all didn't get anything else, I need y'all to catch that. Your
mm-hmm,
life is your runway. Wow, that's beautiful. And that's such a great way to look at it because his word tells us don't look to the left, don't look to the right,
stay
but to
focused.
keep your eyes
Mm-hmm,
on the mark of the high calling God. My
mm-hmm.
God. When the plane is driving, it ain't steering to the left, neither the right.
No, it's not.
When it's ready and time to take off, it goes straight down that lane. It ain't focusing on who on the left or who on the right. Or it's
Mm-hmm.
going straight until it takes off and
Until
goes
it
up
takes
and
off. Right.
accelerates. Wow,
Mm-hmm.
that's beautiful. That's beautiful. So you're happily married now to the man God has for you. So what's next? I mean, what do we now? You know what love is, and you've been married. I'm still in the honeymoon stage. We gonna be 4 years in December, but that's all right. I'm gonna continue honeymooning. But when
Okay.
we get 20 plus years, we still gonna be in the honeymoon stage.
Yes. And you know, we in the honeymoon stage now, if you ask me, because we semi empty nesters. And I say semi because they seem to come back. When they seem to come back. So I say semi. But it's like we're falling in love with each other all over again now since they semi adults.
Yeah.
But what's next for me? I continue to die of self each day so I can be who God created me to be. Um, I have just loving myself even more now, doing even more self care. My husband and I, we have gotten closer together in ministry. Um, we are working together closely in the church. I have started a couple of businesses in regards to helping women be who they are through the Word of God and owning their truth. So it's a lot of things that I'm working on that's still fulfilling me, and I'm still moving and grooving, in the path that God has for me.
Wow, that's beautiful. Isn't it amazing how God will have us to go through things, not for us, but
But
to build
hmm
for His glory
yeah,
and to pull out of us what He's planted inside of us?
I know. And then we have the audacity and the nerve to not to want it to come out.
Exactly.
That's what, because I ran God for a long time. Because again, that goes back to not knowing who I was. And when
Hmm.
I got tired of being sick and tired of being sick and tired, and I just cried out to him, that's when he started talking to me. And I heard him, but I was afraid of it because I didn't know that was that little voice that I was hearing. I thought I
Hmm.
was crazy. That's why didn't want people to understand. I didn't want to tell people about what I went through because ever since I was a little girl, I would hear this audible boy voice, and I was like, "Did I just hear that right?" or whatever. And I just know this is so crazy. I just remember going to school one day, and I was on the bus stop was the church, and I remember getting up on top of the stairs, and when I would raise my hands, it's like the wind would stop. And when I lowered my hands, the wind would come. And I thought it was,
Wow.
the girl was like, "Is that magic?" I said, "Is that it's got something?" But not realizing, girl, that I was, the things that I went through when I was growing up, I thought I was crazy. I'm telling you. Or even from the dreams that I had. And, I remember one time I was at school and I looked up to the sky and I seen God over the gym.
Mm.
And I'm like, why is I'm seeing stuff like this? This is how I know God's hands been on my life for a long time. And although I was in that relationship, he still protected me and shielded me because I should have been in jail because how many times we got busted with dope, but they always let me go. Even though they knew we was fighting, they always let me go. And not just that, just with everything in my life from being almost being killed and all of that. But anyway, I've always heard from, I always had this voice, but didn't know what it was. And I would run from it. And every time I was in church, I always got pulled down to the altar, not
Hmm.
understanding why. But I know God had his hand on me. But like he shielded me from all of that. That's why I don't regret going through everything that I went through when I was in that abusive relationship because it still shaped me and formed me to who I am today.
That's beautiful. That's amazing. It really is. It just shows how gracious and how loving God is. He's just so gracious. Even when we doing wrong, he still say, "I love you." He
Yeah.
still finds a way to shield, cover, and protect us. It's
Yeah.
such a beautiful thing. Y'all, those who are listening in, this is Walk It Out Inspirations. We are speaking on domestic violence. We're speaking on domestic violence this month, as this is Domestic Violence Month. I have my special guest, Miss Tamisa Hunter. She came and she shared her story as domestic violence has a voice. She decided to be one of the voices for the voiceless on behalf and speak on the behalf of the voiceless that are afraid to talk up and share their stories. So I thank God for you, Miss Tamisa Hunter, and those that know anybody that may be in a domestic violence situation, whether it's physical, mental, or emotional, or verbal, because guess what? It might start off verbal, but it can get worse. It can go from verbal to physical, then to emotional.
Mhm.
So don't let the verbal and be like, oh, it's just verbal. He just cussed me out and called me every other name, because it can increase and intensify. So for those that know anyone, or even if you're in a situation like that and you are ready to get out, but you did not know how, the number that is on the bottom, it's a hotline, 1-800-799-SAFE. That is 1-800-799-7233. Reach out to that that hotline. If we still had payphones, guess what? This is a free number. You could have called this number on a payphone, and someone would be on the other end giving you directions on how to get out of your situation. There's lives that are being lost. We're losing lives behind domestic violence. As I've shared with you guys before, I lost a son behind domestic violence, and others have lost an entire family,
Mm-hmm.
entire family, the daughter, the children, and everybody being gone. So if you know anyone, this is a very serious situation and very serious topic to talk about. If you know anyone, again, that number is at the bottom, 800-799-7233. Miss Tamisa, so if anyone, you mentioned about some of the things that you and your husband are doing for the community and what you're working on so far as in ministry wise, helping women find their identities and things of that nature. If anyone wanted to reach out to you that was like, I'm not comfortable coming out loud, but maybe, I could speak to someone on the side and, get some help that way. How can people reach out to you?
You can always go to my website, which is TamisaHunter.com. That's TAMISA Hunter.com. And you can submit a prayer request, or you can just complete the contact form, and it come directly to me. And then I'll reach out and we can talk about it. Because I'm glad that you said that, because when I was in it, I didn't know anything about a number because everywhere I went to turned away. But trust me, someone is always there for you to be
Hmm.
able to reach out to talk to someone. Talk to them whenever, wherever, whoever. Just let someone know what you're going through. And don't be afraid or don't be ashamed. But you can go to my website. You can follow me on all social media platforms, which is Tamisa Hunter. That is the social media handle. You can also send me an email at Tamisa@TamisaHunter.com. And I'm always there. Not only do we have that, we do have our Kingdom Conference Coaching Academy classes, which is a platform for you to come in and surrender, for you to be in a non judgment zone. So if you don't feel like calling, reach out and sign up for one of the classes, and then we'll be able to do more one on ones to be able to help you and point you in the right direction to get you help if you need be.
Oh, wow. That's wonderful. That's definitely good to know. So, listen, you guys, the resources are here. As you guys can see, the resources, God is releasing the resources for you to get help. So, if you want to, because God said that we must seek counsel. If we need counsel, we need to seek counsel. Not only us seeking God, but God will release the resources to help you in your situation. So, if you would like to connect with Miss Tamisa Hunter, I have, as you can see, her website is TamisaHunter.com, or you can email her at Tamisa@TamisaHunter.com. She is also available on all social media platforms under the name Tamisa Hunter. So the connection is there. Connect. If you definitely know, listen, I need help. She spoke to me. What she spoke resonated. Her story encouraged me. It gave me hope. Yes, I definitely would like to connect, whether to take one of her courses, whether to take one of her mentorship programs or classes that she has. Definitely connect with her, because honestly, the time is now for us to be free. It is
Confident
time.
and free. Yes, confident and free. Say that again.
Yes, yes. Look, she added the other C, confident. Confident, not
Yes,
just free, but be confident in your
and
freedom.
free.
That
Right.
that 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 part right there. Being
Mhm.
confident and free and walking in confidence in your being liberated, in that spirit of liberation. God has released it over our lives, and it's up to us to make a choice and
Yes.
take the chance
Hmm.
to be confident in our freedom and
Hmm.
living a liberated life.
Yes. And
So
you walk your runway, sis. You
you
own
better
the runway.
strut. Listen.
Strut it. Walk in your truth. Own your truth and keep it walking.
Hey man, you listen. You might not be a but you better work
Right,
and
you better work.
strut that
Yeah.
stuff like you the best thing coming out there
Yes.
because
Yes.
God created your life for you.
Mm-hmm.
It was authentically designed just for you, and everything that God has for you is along your runway. But the
Yes.
only way to find out is if you actually walk your run. You got to walk it out.
Walk it
Rise and walk it out. That's right.
out. Oh my goodness, this has been so fun. Thank you so much for having me. Thank you so much for listening to my story. I hope and pray that I was able to encourage someone that they too can overcome, and that my testimony was a way for them to see that you too can make it out. Because I'm a living witness. I do not look like what I went through. And sis, if you need help, or you need someone to pray to, cry out to, or just want to just flat out just need someone else to talk to, please reach out to me or reach out to that toll-free number for the domestic violence hotline for someone to help you, because help is there.
Mhm. Amen. Amen. Thank you so much, Miss Tamisa, for joining me. Y'all, listen, y'all tune in. We gonna be back again tomorrow. Tomorrow with another special guest that is coming on to share her testimony of domestic violence at 5 p.m. So y'all, they coming out. Why? Because domestic violence has a voice.
Voice.
Domestic violence has a voice. This is Walk It Out Inspirations Talk Truth Talk Show. I am your host, Prophetess Alicia Brown, and my special guest, Tamisa Hunter. Y'all tune in. Y'all make sure y'all hit the thumbs up. Y'all YouTube folks, hit the thumbs up, like, share, subscribe. Y'all continue to tune in. Y'all stay well, stay safe, peace, and many blessings. Y'all take care now. Bye. Until tomorrow.
Bye.